8:30, I'll call this morning's meeting to order. Looking for an approval of the agenda. We do have two agenda additions. The first one is an approval of a liquor license for Willow Creek Golf Course. The City of Barnesville is the owner, and number two is approval of out-of-state travel for Kathy McKay for public health.
Move approval with additions.
We have a motion to approve with additions.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. The approval of the payment of bills and vouchers.
Move to. Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We have our May 1st, 2018 meeting minutes. Board's wishes?
Move approval.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Citizens to be heard. Are there any citizens wishing to speak on anything not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move into our second item, the request approval to fill 3 positions in the attorney's office. We have Brian Melton, our county attorney. Good morning.
Good morning, folks.
Good morning, Brian.
Good to see you. So, yeah, we're definitely in a period of transition time, and I think that happens at times. And I think the first one to talk about, and obviously very bittersweet that Jenny is leaving us. I think she's taken a terrific position that she's excited about. I'm sad to lose her. So 14 years in the office and 6 as the chief assistant, and she's just done an outstanding job for us. And so can't say enough about that. But I guess I'll just leave it at that, other than looking to fill that position. It's a budgeted position. I would look to fill it internally first. I think we have some very good internal candidates that have worked within the civil division as well as within the criminal division that have potential background that could fill that position. So I would ask to be able to fill that internally and then backfill if that works out. If it doesn't happen, then I would look to advertise and go from there to fill it if that's the way it would go. So that's the first position I'm looking to fill. Second, again, also bittersweet, Sue Catery has been in my office for 19 years, so she's one of the most senior, probably next to myself and Kim Schreiner. She's retiring, so she's been my office manager. She's at, and maybe I should have said too that with Jenny's position, that's a grade 25. I'd be asking to fill that position at the same grade as a chief assistant. Sue's position is a grade 13 as office administrator coordinator. I would ask to be able to fill that position at that same level, Clay 13. I would also ask to, or look to fill that one internally, the different legal secretaries that are in the office. I think there's several that are very qualified, or actually all of them that are qualified. I think they would do a good job. I believe there's probably interest in doing that. And then if that was filled internally, I'd look to backfill after that of a new legal secretary. And then the third is one of our newest legal secretaries. She had some surgery recently. She's getting married, so she looked at stepping away from working for a period of time, and with that she resigned, and she resigned. Her final day was yesterday after 2 weeks' notice, and so that position is currently open. That's a grade 12, and I'd be looking to fill at that level as well. So those are the 3 positions, and some were expected. I've known for Sue's retirement for the last 6 months. Jenny's was something that definitely came up, and we're super happy for her, but definitely all budgeted and all important to fill.
Okay. Discussion and questions from the board?
You want to do these one
If
at a
not,
time?
can we do these separately, please?
Okay, I would move fill the chief assistant county attorney position at grade 25 with backfill.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to fill the first position. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. That was a sad aye. All right, so that one is taken care of. The second?
Move to approve. Office staff with backfill.
We have a second position with a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And the third,
I'd also move to fill the vacant legal secretary position.
we have a motion to approve and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Good luck, Brian.
Thank you,
So,
Brian.
appreciate
Good
it.
luck in finding
Good to
those
see you.
replacements. All right, our next is the request approval to combine 2 part-time jail clerical positions. Julie? Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, well, the jail has 2 clerical positions. One's 50% and one's 60%. The 50% employee is actually a job share. She also works 50% for the mailroom. So the jail already pays 50% of her health insurance. Our 60% employee is retiring in July, and we pay 60% of that insurance. So what I'd like to do is combine the position into one full-time. There'll be some slight cost savings, and
Okay.
we'd just like approval to go ahead and try that.
All right. What?
Maybe a question,
Yeah.
if I can. I don't know if it's Darren or Brian. So the other 50% that this person works that's in the mailroom, because you would now have one full-time, then that person would no longer work. So what would happen with that .5 position that's being
Sure.
lost in the mailroom?
Well, we've been in contact with Georgia. She's fully aware of the situation, and she's waiting for me to get this taken care of so she can come back to the county board and request to fill that position.
Okay, so there could be some additional cost.
It should,
No, go ahead if you.
I don't know how there would be additional costs. It's a 50% position. And if she just hired somebody that's strictly 50%, then there wouldn't be 50% health insurance costs, so.
Okay, so you're paying the 50% health cost because it's a full-time position.
Mhm.
But okay,
Right.
I see, okay. All right, that explains my.
So what you're effectively saving is the cost of the health insurance? Not you per se,
No.
but.
Potentially,
Yeah.
if she doesn't hire that as a full-time spot over there and it's just 50%, then yeah, that's 50% savings of a health insurance package. I honestly don't know what her plan is, but I'm assuming that's what she's planning on.
Brian, did you have another comment, or did she cover it?
No, Madam Chair, and I had the same question, Commissioner Campbell, so it's kind of comical. I didn't understand the 50% either, but, so she's a full-time employee. That half position will be then moving over to the jail, and then Georgia will come in and ask to fill, I think, a 50% position, which, of course, we don't pay benefits, the health benefits until .6. So there would be a savings actually effective if it's filled at that level.
Any further questions, comments? I think it's a great way to be flexible and looking how to cut costs in little areas that we can, so hopefully it's something that can work out.
I move approval of the request.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Campbell
Second.
and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
All right, we'll take our out-of-state travel agenda edition. Kathy McKay. Jamie, are you coming up as well?
Yeah, right. You are sorry.
Good morning.
Good morning.
No, did you receive copies of the request?
It's in our agenda packet.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Or
okay.
addition packet.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll let Jamie go ahead. She's been here the last few times. She might as well continue to do this one.
We have our Nurse Family Partnership Supervisor position. We have a retirement, and we have filled that position internally, and that requires out-of-state travel. And the out-of-state travel is to Colorado, and it's covered under the fee grant, so.
Can you just tell me what that grant stands for?
Mothers, Infants, and Early Childhood Home Visiting. It's a federal grant that goes through the Minnesota Department of Health, and then we have the grant with Clay, our Partnership for Health, and then also Fulcrum and Minnesota.
Okay.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. And just to note again that that's all covered by that grant, correct?
Yep.
And it's required. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, why don't we also just take quick this approval of the liquor license for Willow Creek Golf Course? City of Moorhead? Or, I'm sorry, City of Barnesville. We have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Further discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, our item number 4, our preliminary budget discussion. Brian Berg and Lori Johnson, good morning.
Well, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the commission. We're here today to start the task of establishing the 2019 budget, which we folks all enjoy. But
We really enjoyed it.
we really enjoy it, yes, that's right. But anyway, today, what we normally do at this time is in your package, you have a letter that we'll be sending out to the department heads on your behalf. And then Lori will send out a spreadsheet for them to fill in. And they will send me their narratives for discussion purposes. And we'll start going through the budgets with the department heads. And then they will, and that's what we're here to talk about, how you want to handle it again. And if you want to go about it at the same way, we'll schedule departments, or most of them, in front of you to talk about their issues and why they are asking for the funds that they're asking for and things along those lines. So if you want to go down the road that we have in the past, same process, the schedule is before you. You'll need to approve. And I shouldn't say you need to. We will be asking for a preliminary levy to be approved before the end of September. And if you did not approve one, then it stays with the same levy that you passed last year. So when I say need, there is a deadline there, but if you don't do that, that's what happens to it. So I didn't know if you were aware of that or not, but so I guess any questions on the schedule or how you want to proceed, or any discussion points or anything that you would like to tell us or give us marching orders this morning? So.
What are the board's questions? It's easy to ask for marching orders when you're going to leave halfway through the schedule.
It's a lot more happier about this budget this year.
I am a little less tense, that's for sure. I can't deny that.
Can't get that grin off.
Make a recommendation that we have the budget completed by July 27th. Just kidding.
I think the timeline looks right.
Good,
Appropriate.
good.
Anything else? All right, well, that looks good.
We'll proceed in that fashion, in that format then, if that's acceptable to you folks.
Yeah, it looks great. Thank
Okay.
you for putting that together.
Thank you.
All right.
And then next, well, I guess that's the next item on the
Yes, go
agenda.
for it.
We'll go right into that. And, we've really been, I should say, tied up with the bonding and everything else, and we like to do these updates at least quarterly, and that's what I'm going to hand out here is the expense and revenues that have been collected so far in 2018, and we can go over those a little bit.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is something that Lori prints off and gave to me yesterday, I believe it was yesterday afternoon. So it's about as current and accurate as you can get. It goes through the end of April is what I asked her for. So the expense side, which is over on the right side, it shows the expenditure percentage, and we're at about a third of the year. So it's through the end of April. And just for a reminder that the third column there is a percentage of the revenue collections. So sometimes you'll see a large expenditure in the right column on the expenditure, and then you'll notice quite a high percentage over on the revenue column, and then sometimes it's a grant that's come in or something along those lines. So I guess if you kind of go down the list, you will see some percentages that surpass the 33%. And what happens at the beginning of the year, there's annual memberships and things that we pay out that come out of budget, and the commissioners is one of them. It's a year at 37%, but we pay the membership for I think it's AMC and some other things out of there that then it takes a few months to even that off. So there's really, for my sake in going through it, there's really nothing alarming, or nothing alarming at all. And there was a couple, I guess I had some questions on. I have not had time to call the individuals if there is a question. You know, the narcotics task force, I think, was 47%, and I guess I'd want to find out why that's running ahead of schedule unless we make a payment there. Like,
Yeah, not on that one.
like library, for example, we're at 50%, and that just means that we've made the 2 payments to them. And it's the same with some of the smaller ones. You're at 100%. That means their annual payment has been made rather than on a semi-annual basis or whatever. So it looks like I mean, there's nothing that's startling us. I know last year I had to keep telling you that the court administration, I think it was, that was way expending much more than we budgeted, and that was my mistake, and we leveled that off, and looks like we leveled it off so far fairly well. So I don't know if you have any questions. We'd certainly entertain
I just had a
them.
question on the revenues for motor vehicle. I know that we thought that we'd be significantly behind just because of the web update.
Right.
They look kind of.
We're close, but we're still a little bit behind.
Right. Just in terms of annually, what do we usually see at the end of April?
Well, generally at this time of year, you know, we're pretty much on track. It's pretty even throughout the year, but now we do have, with boat season coming on, and so it does get a little bit busier, so we may pick some of that up.
But it's not as bad as we thought it would be
It's getting better.
so far.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if I could say that, because if you notice, we budgeted for $663,000 of expenditures and only $525,000 for revenues. So you have a difference of roughly 130, 35, and we normally like to see those running fairly close. So
Okay.
you have identified $130,000 worth of county revenue dollars to help pay for that. So we'd certainly like to keep pace with that 525. Even at that time, we're behind.
When we did that, though, Brian, if we did that when we prepared the 2018 budget, were we that in the know about the Empire's software issue? Or?
I would like to say yes. We were realizing that it was not functioning properly at that
Right.
time. Last summer was a
At the
tough.
very beginning.
was a
Okay,
tough
that was the
summer.
beginning of it.
was.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
And they just, we've lost revenue. We've driven away
Yeah.
business because of the service end of the computer system, and that's unfortunate.
Further questions?
A follow-up, Brian, you had mentioned the narcotics task force. Is that the same as what the street gang, or are they?
Yeah, this is a little different, Madam Chair and Commissioner Campbell. The Narcotics Task Force is a federally help-supported federal task force. That's where we have 2 deputies assigned to it, and the federal government supplies a vehicle and pays for the overtime. We pay for the regular time salary. So there may be a flow there that.
So
that
the
might be
street
a little behind.
crimes and gang task force that we added a person to here a while back, that goes under the law enforcement.
Under sheriff's office.
Sheriff's
It's all
office.
local.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, okay.
Further questions?
If I can, Lori, just going to the solid waste management, I don't know if you've been aware yet about the changes that we're going to be making to the monthly payments to Prairie Lakes. Have you been?
Not yet.
Okay, well, that's going way
Going up.
down,
Okay, going down, okay.
going
That's
way
good.
down,
Yeah, that's good.
to the tune of 10,000 a month, I think, close to it. So,
When does that start?
it's actually retroactive to January 1, so we're going to have a couple months of no payment, and 1 month, they're going to think they're going to cut us a check back, for, I think.
Yeah. Good. Further questions? If not, thank you for presenting this to us.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
All right, our next item looks like an engineer's recommendation. They are not here yet for that. Kevin, are you ready for your
I can.
committee reports?
Yes,
Thank
I can, yep. Okay, last Tuesday, we had the Personal Issues Committee meeting, and we talked about a couple of things that are cases pending. We talked about was it the sergeants wanting to
Yes.
leave the correctional officer bargaining unit? I think it's there's a, because of the change in their duties, I think it's something that, Brian, if I'm explaining it correctly, because of the change in their duties, because now that they will be doing reviews, that it's a necessary change, I believe is what we've been told, so that's moving forward, if I'm understanding correctly. And then we started getting some feedback on the subcommittee that's on the insurance, for the insurance policy or health insurance issues, looking at some potential recommendations for changes there. And then we did discuss the recorder position path moving forward. And Brian, I don't know if you're going to touch on that anymore today, or?
Probably not.
Okay,
until we
okay.
present
So
it.
we've had some discussions on what approach we should take there. Nothing's finalized on that. Wednesday, I had the public outreach meeting for the Diversion Authority. And we've been told that there's good coordination and communication with the DNR regarding the supplemental EIS process that the DNR has to do because of the significant changes made to the plan. And then there's an area on the fmdiversion.com website where people can go to in the maps area where they can drill down in their township and get information as to how the plan impacts their properties. And it was reported that there was a tour of 7 members of the Minnesota DNR that went on a complete tour of the outline of the new Plan B plan, and that was taken as a really good sign because they're the ones who are working on the permitting process. So Thursday we had the Diversion Authority meeting. There was some discussion about opportunistic property acquisition discussion, and we had a discussion about that, there's a lot of, or not a lot, but there's, I think they talked about 90-some parcels that are currently on the market that are right along where the diversion channel would be, and so we're trying to determine what we can and can't do based on the court injunction. We're trying to get clarification. By buying those, it certainly doesn't impede with Minnesota waters, is part of what the DNR's concern was, so that moves on. And then we got an update on the flowage easement study. There will be more coming out on that pretty soon. Okay, and that was both in the land management and again at the diversion authority meeting. And I had on Friday, we had the Prairie Lakes budget meeting, and that is all going very well. We did change and authorize the credit card policy for a couple of the staff there to be able to efficiently go out and do things. There's a substation, power substation right outside there that Prairie Lakes was responsible for. That's going to be turned over to the power company. And so that'll reduce the liability. If that substation went out, it would cost Prairie Lakes hundreds of $1,000s to fix. So we've agreed with the power company to let them take that over. And there's a little bit of electricity rates dealing with that. We talked about a energy efficiency audit for the place. It's coming up. That ultimately it's cost of $40,000, but we're guaranteed to get the full $40,000 back if we take their suggestions. So. And then finally, on yesterday, we had a highway meeting, and we're going to be talking about that shortly. I see we have Cecil, Mayor of Glendon here, and Joe, and hopefully Dave will be here shortly, and we can discuss this excessively high bid on the project in Glendon. So we'll be talking about that shortly. But that concludes my week of.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Haney, can you do yours as well?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. On Wednesday, I attended the Flood Diversion Authority Finance Committee, and one of the things that was okayed was the biotic and geomorphic monitoring program, in which there were 392 parcels in the flood diversion area that were okayed for biotic and geomorphic monitoring. And that means that they're going to be counting the snails in that area along the various ditches and water courses involved in this. And that was quite interesting. They listed every one of them.
I'm impressed that you can say that word twice.
Well, it's written down right in front of me.
Well, it doesn't mean that you can pronounce it. That's good.
And then on Thursday, I attended the Lake Agassiz Regional Library board meeting, and we had the financial report, year-to-date, the director's report, and pretty much it. The Crookston Library is coming along very nicely with the remodeling project. They've got a little ways to go, but for the most part, it's almost all done. And then on Friday, I attended the ribbon cutting for the Lakes and Prairies Community Action Network, along with Commissioner Mojo and Mayor Williams. And then right after that, I attended the Early Childhood Initiative meeting here at the Family Service Center. And that's my report for the week.
Thank you, Commissioner Haney. Commissioner Gross?
Wednesday with the Historical Society meeting, we got the Scandinavia and the Viking Festival coming up June 22nd, just to get everybody aware of that in the county. Be a big event there. Also, we started looking at the 150th celebration of Clay County, which is coming 2022, which is still 4 years away, but it's starting to prepare the book that probably we put together. So we're looking at that. We elected new officers. John Everett is now the president of the Historical Society. And okay, that was it for that meeting. There again, Friday, I was at the open house with I came a little bit after the ribbon cutting, but I attended the Lakes and Prairies Community Action open house. I was very impressed with all the people that are involved. I mean, I'm not involved in that committee, but when you look at all the people that are involved in working in Lakes and Prairie, it is quite impressive to see that staff there, that all the work that you do with the children and the people. Yesterday morning, there again, we're talking, which would be a discussion item, on the Linden project, we'll discuss that later. Then yesterday afternoon, I had a meeting up at the Ada for the Agassiz Recreational Trail. We just discussed how things are going there, what everybody's, what each county, that involves Norman County and Polk County. Norman County, we just have 5 miles of the trail, and Norman County has agreed to mow our 5 miles, so the maintenance of that's pretty well taken care of. Norman County bought a road leveler that's gonna pretty much take care of trails too, it's gonna help out there. Geraldine up there, the engineer, she was talking about recreational trail supplies, getting funding. They get there's a federal place they get funding from, you know, and I don't know, not so much for our Agassiz Valley, but probably for Heartland Trails, that we may have to look at some of see if there's any funds available there. So, and Polk County, their report pretty much was they're buying some additional land, so most of the trail that's in Polk County is going to be government-owned land. So that's other than that, things are going very good with the trail since we switched that over from having a committee to just each county doing their own thing. That was my
Good,
report.
thank you very much. Commissioner Weber?
Well, let's see, I had diversion public outreach also, Kevin reported on that, but it is good news, I think, that the DNR and the Corps of Engineers are working together on some of these issues closely. I had a meeting with the Clay Seniors Council, and Dale Raleigh was there, and he's retiring the end of the month, and his replacement was there. I think her name is, yeah, what's her first name?
Robin.
Robin, right. I couldn't remember her first name, but she looks like she'll be a good replacement. She's got like 12 years, I think, with Lakes and Prairies, and Dale expressed, you know, how grateful he was for all the support he'd gotten from the county commission over the years, and I think all the seniors there agreed with that. So, and then I had a EDC executive committee meeting where we selected the new president for the Greater Fargo Ward EDC, who's Joe Rosso, and he'll be starting, I think, later in July, and so that's exciting. I'm sure he'll be coming, you know, to one of our meetings shortly after he starts and telling us a little bit about himself and what his plans are. So that was it for me.
Great, thank you. Last week I also attended the PIC committee meeting. Commissioner Campbell recapped that well. That evening I attended the Planning Commission meeting. There were 3 issues. One was an interim use request for a temporary asphalt plant in Hagen Township. It is something that will increase road traffic significantly for the short amount of time that it will be in, I don't know if it was a 2-week or 3-week thought process that it would be used. So that passed unanimously. The second was an interim use request for a truck scale from Strata Corp in Flowing. That is an interesting proposal that basically just said they were going to put a scale off of the road. They have so many pits in the general vicinity. It was a way to get a more accurate count as to what exactly the weight of those trucks run. So there were some questions in terms of how it affected road traffic. I've been vocal about us having some sort of official recommendation from our highway department on these permits when they could potentially affect traffic. So I'm hoping that we can get some sort of formal process going to have that for discussion at the Planning Commission. That also passed unanimously. The next one was a request for rezoning in the urban expansion district of Ward Township. If you recall, we've had some significant discussion over that over the past few years. This is a property south of the Red River Trails bus barns that already has a building on it. In order for this individual to build something on it, he owns it and it has a building. He needs to have that rezoning classified. So it is something that the rest of the Planning Commission felt was a modest request that passed passed unanimously. I did bring up a question if the Red River Trails wanted to expand their own business on their own property, if they would have to follow the same suit. And the thought is that, yes, they would have to apply for rezoning in that urban expansion district. So that, I understand why we have that, but there continues to be gray areas as to what's an appropriate use. So that will be coming to us in the next few weeks, I would guess. Wednesday, I had a phone conversation with Jenny and Lori and Brian Berg about some issues that have presented themselves. They included me for that, and more will be forthcoming. I attended the MetroCog meeting on Thursday. We discussed a couple tip amendments that were general, just in the consent agenda. We discussed the 2019-2020 UPWB and UPWP in the budget. That all looks good. We're renewed human resources contract with the city of West Fargo. That's been something that's been very beneficial to us in the last year and a half with all the human resources gamut, but especially with the executive director search. And we have had an update. We agreed on there was a contract extended to an individual, I can't remember her last name now, in the area, and so hopefully that person will start at the end of June. I also attended the Lakes and Prairies ribbon cutting. That was a really great feat. The person that donated a significant amount of money to make that happen made the trip from Washington, D.C. It was a person that grew up in the River Valley, but moved away at a young age and felt that because they knew how much good community actions did within counties and communities and wanted to give back, so that was helpful. And also our Head Start district advisor came from Chicago, so that was a good event. That also concludes my reports. I see that Dave is here. If you're ready, we'll take your recommendation for the Glendon Urban Reconstruct. Cecil or Joe, did you want to come up as well for the conversation?
Yeah, let's see.
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
We're honored by your presence.
Thank you.
All right, David.
Yes, I will hand out pass those around. We did meet with the city engineer as well as city staff. We met with highway department and we went through our numbers in fine detail. We talked specifically about budget, how much budget we have set aside, and we took a look at where the bids came in. Just to summarize for the board and the public watching the meeting, most of the underground items were in excess of 30% over our estimate, and cumulative, the entire bid, the low bid, we only got 2 bids. I think that was, part of, not seeing a lot of competition or not having a lot of different numbers to look at, but the lowest bid we did get was 23% over our estimate. I think timing had a fair amount to do with this. This is a federal aid project that involved some right-of-way, involved BNSF railroad agreements, and they just all took so much time this spring. Our staff was ready to go. I think Eric initially sent this agreement to BN a year ago. So he's been working on the agreement for the last year. We had all environmental documents done in December. We would have been ready to go for a March letting like we had hoped. The agreements didn't come timely enough. MnDOT wouldn't approve the project until those agreements are done. So everything has a set order of how it has to happen. So the impact to the county alone would be in excess of $500,000 between additional cost on items, and even engineering was over $50,000, being that the engineering is based 8% on the bid itself. So I don't see how our 5-year plan could accommodate the higher numbers. I think the city feels the same way, and it was per our meeting yesterday, if they want to say anything, but
The increased cost to Glidden was how much? 600?
About 680,000, I believe.
Can we talk about the bid process just for a second?
Sure.
My concern is think we had some bids that were kicked out because of whatever reason, because of the computer, and I'm not saying that, I'm not gonna say that computer's a foolproof thing, because we learned that last week. I'm just concerned that, that maybe there were good bids that got kicked out for whatever reason, and I know we're moving towards the electronic bids, but, you know, if you can't even access what they said, how do we know? where
Yeah,
they're
there was 4 contractors that initially signed on. There was 2 of them that did not even, it appears like they didn't get very far at all, so they didn't start it. One contractor started and did about half of it, and the 4th contractor did have all the documents in there, but he didn't finish the electronic process. So when we finally did get into the electronic portal with our staff, it just said an incomplete bid, so that number was not read.
And my concern is why in a busy time of year would a contractor start something and then just not finish it? Was there a computer issue that?
It sounded like, this is what Eric and I gathered, is the initial bid packet was submitted at 8:49, so 11 minutes early, but there was some documents that had to be attached in there, and the process is those documents have to be, there's a finalization, I think it says finish, there's a big blue button at the bottom that says finish, and he didn't hit that finish button for those documents, so the whole packet, it looks like it's, it registers as incomplete. And I did talk to the bidder from the company that did it, and he tried, to do it, he just couldn't figure it out, and I think he ran out of time. Had he had more time, he could have made some phone calls to us. And I did talk to the software company, and I asked, I said, was there a glitch here? Because if there was a glitch like we had, I think we would have different issues. And I did talk to Jenny a little bit too, county attorney staff, and everything we're hearing from RT Vision is they said there's no way there could be a glitch because it doesn't work that way. He said it did work for Celine Brothers. They did do electronic bidding as well, and theirs did work and register, and we read it. So I guess what we're gathering is the process that he needed to follow to get all the documents and then hit and have a good bid wasn't, I think he ran out of time. I think he just, for some reason, if you get to the end, you hit submit, and it brings you back to what you don't have done yet. Just like any time you purchase something on the internet or do some credit card things, it always brings you back to what's incomplete. And he just wasn't able to hit the right finish button to get his bid complete, and he must have ran out of time. He was about 10 minutes before 9 o'clock when he submitted his bid, and and he was a little frustrated. He understood it, and I think he was okay with it. And I just tried to dig into where the problem was. He says, "God, I swear I hit that button," but I guess there's really no way to tell at this point.
God, Commissioner Campbell.
I think those are really good questions that you've raised, Madam Chair. I think it was kind of a little irony about the whole electronic thing last week when we were, a few minutes before, we were praising it. But I think it's something that we need to get a handle of, and I it's in our meeting that we had yesterday. There was some discussion. Somebody who waits till 10 minutes before the time to submit it to, they're kind of risking it themselves by waiting so long when the process is open for much longer than that. But I'm anxious to hear from the mayor of Glendon to get his thoughts on this. I certainly have mine, but I'm gonna wait to hear from the city and see what they think of this process.
Well, I think at the beginning, our engineer, and I'm sure, I don't know too much about Dave's, but said there'd be a lot of bids because it was early. And then I come hear about there was only 4.
I think we had 2 that we read and one that was incomplete.
There was only 2 completed bids.
2 complete bids.
And that really frustrates me now. I'm an old timer and I'm not too into these electronic, seeing is believing on paper. If everything has to go through electronic now to get anything, and if you're as old as I am and you don't follow the protocol, we're off. I mean, over the years, I think we've been working on this with the county going on 5 years. That's when I first heard it from Glendon, had a chance to upgrade the city. And, you know, the meetings that we've had in Glendon, convincing or talking to the residents that affect them the most on County 19 or Park Avenue, I would say about 90% of them are all for it. And they still are today, but most of them don't know that the meeting that you had yesterday, that I wasn't here or whatever. Now to go back and tell these citizens it's on hold. The other thing that comes up is I had a conversation with the superintendent, Tygerson, I think, yesterday. And they're putting together a bond bid to come out here shortly, maybe this fall, with new architects and things like this. And we haven't heard from them other than what I called him and talked to him yesterday. So my problem is then that bonding bill from the school, the taxes on our property are going to hit us all within 2019. That's an awful thing to take a look at when you get your tax statement in the mail. So I believe Joe thinks as much as I do about we, and just like you people have to deal with your constituents, we live closer to our constituents than people do, and we hear it every day. So once we got those people convinced that that's, I don't know if we convinced them that way, but all of them need to know that we need something done to that street. And after all the conversations I've had with Dave about it was coming, we got the word out to the people that this is going to happen. We had those few people that are old that don't want to move ahead. But this is for safety. This is for better way of life, right, in Glendon, because that road, I sit in my driveway and watch the traffic that goes by on that street, and it looks like Highway 10. And that's all day long. So they know something has to be done with that street in Glendon. And then when the bids came in, that kind of flabbergasted to no end. So if the county can work with us, I'm very happy with Dave and the county commission here that's going along with this, and I hope we can get this taken care of so the project can go on. And our city engineer has been talking to Dave, and I hope that what they are doing can get that cost to where it's livable.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Campbell?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yesterday, we talked quite extensively about this project. And from our highway tracking committee perspective is we understand the importance of the project. We still intend to support it. We still want it part of our 5-year plan. And, you know, I think right now it actually had a completion date into 2019, the way it was, to have it done. What we were told by our engineering staff is, you know, for example, by rebidding this thing, it's not going to get any worse than what it is now. But they've come up with some design options that we think could at least knock $500,000 off of it. That in alone should give us, you know, the idea that let's take a look at this thing and see how we can lessen that burden for the property taxpayer that you're talking about in Glendon with all the other stuff that's going on, as well as ease the burden on our 5-year plan, because the $500,000 or $550,000 additional dollars that would have to come out of our 5-year plan means something else then also has to go, right? Because we only have so many dollars. So I think the goal here is to still work on getting that project complete, you know, and as quickly as we can, but still recognizing that we think there's some opportunities to get better pricing. So I would hope you would support that process.
I certainly will support that, because I can't speak for the rest of the council, but I'm sure that they see the same thing as Joe and I see every day when we get up in the morning, that street really does need work. So.
Joe, did you?
Yeah, I think just to kind of echo the mayor's comments, it's a pretty important project to Glendon, and we had been working on it for a long time, and I think we got that TAP route, or Safe Routes grant that we worked together on, and wasn't planned to go until 2019 anyway, so
Correct.
We still have that intact, but yeah, I think what we're doing here by taking a second look in this redesign, and we're able to keep doing the project. We know it's important, and I think just taking a better look at it and rebidding it is going to be a good thing in the end for Glendon too, and the county. So.
Yeah, we'll take a look at the scope a little bit. We will get this thing ready for a letting date later this fall. We really need to get, hopefully, the word out there, get some more contractors. More than likely, we're just going to do paper bids only on this next go around. So we'll give that a try. This one was paper and electronic. It was both. So we didn't force anybody to have to do it that way. It's a really slick tool when it works, but it's catastrophic when it doesn't work. So we tried it, and it worked on quite a few of our projects, our other paving jobs this year. It worked out just fine, but there were some changes that were made that allowed our passcode keys not to validate that morning. And then I don't know what happened exactly with the bidder for some reason, but he says he did everything right, but he wasn't sure, and they're saying that he didn't.
I'm just a little concerned that this bid letting was a little later than we thought in the year, and clearly the bids reflect that. You know, I don't know what all the bids were, but I would guess they would be fairly close in terms of price. My concern is if we're doing this in the fall, the majority of these bigger companies have their big projects already bid out for the year. You know, this is a significantly large project in terms of that, and often you can kind of pick up some of these smaller companies with, you know, projects $300,000-$400,000, but if you're talking something in excess of $4.5 million, I'm just a little concerned if we're being naive to think that the bid prices on some of these products and labor are going to go down by that time.
Well, the plan is to try to capture two things. It's going to be a 2019 project. We're not going to bid it this fall thinking we're going to tear the road all up, but there is opportunity for some of the pond work to be done in 19 as well. So,
or 18.
Or 18, I mean, yep. So some of the work could be done this fall yet, and essentially getting things ready to go for 2019. So what we need to do is make sure that the pool of bidders that we want to try to get to have time to put together a bid.
Right.
So that's one of my biggest fears, is if they're really out there they're all working hard. I mean, it takes time to put these things together, like you mentioned, and if they don't have time to give us a good bid, we're kind of spinning our wheels there too. So we need to find out how late we can let this to a point where they will still be able to put enough effort into it to give us a bid and then get themselves ready for 2019 is what we're looking at doing.
But doesn't it give a unfair advantage to companies other than Celine, now that everyone knows what Celine bid on certain things? I mean, the reality is that Celine did the work to put together a big bid package, and yes, it was over our engineer's estimate, but now they haven't, when we're going with a low bid project, they have the disadvantage.
Yeah, I mean, projects do get rebid from time to time. I don't know if supply price was some of this. The plastic pipe numbers were awful high. The concrete numbers were awful high. So I don't know. A lot of times when we do our concrete box culverts, they give us a price sheet and we put our estimate together, and then the concrete companies will give a huge discount for, if they're, but right now I think everyone's pretty busy. So those discounts that we sometimes see on materials like pipe, I don't think we were able to recognize those because, like you said, we did bid this thing in the middle of May. Ideally, it would have been nice to bid this thing early March, but there just was no way to do that with the approval process. So I'm hoping that maybe, if we bid this thing later this fall, we can possibly recognize some of those discounts for 2019. That would be a big thing. But yeah, it's hard when you get numbers out there.
And don't get me wrong, obviously this is in excess over 20% what your estimate was, but my concern is that as other municipalities have observed, kicking the can down the road only adds significant costs, and for the city of Glendon and Clay County's bottom line, I'm just worried that we're going to add increased cost to this.
Yeah, if we were doing the exact same thing this fall, I would echo that 100%. But there's going to be quite a few changes going on. We need to find a potential home for some of the material that's coming out of the roadway. Right now, it's being hauled not real far away, but if we can get that material stored somewhere within the city limits, maybe one of the new subdivisions, being that they do need to be built up a little bit, and some of the materials already has been used on some homes. So I think that'll save. Like I said, we're redesigning our typical section a little bit. There was a couple of different options provided by the soil company on how to do it. We chose what we thought was the cheapest option, granular fill, and those numbers came in pretty high, and it created more excavation. So if we skinny the section up a little bit, we'll potentially save as much as $500,000 based on the bid prices.
Are you changing the type of fill?
A little bit. Yeah, there's, like I said, there's a select granular, there's class 5 and asphalt, so that will change a little bit. So our excavation numbers, the option we're looking at, the excavation numbers would go down, less material to haul away, less sand to haul in.
In regards to that item alone, is it possible to have a bid that could be presented based on
With 3 options?
the 3 different options?
Correct. Yep, you could do an alternative. Yep, absolutely.
I think that might be in our best interest to even have that considered in a bid.
Sure. Yeah, we'll discuss that with the city engineer a little bit and see it. But we did talk about potentially having an alternate just to give them the option of how they want to, what type of materials they want to haul in, whether it's class 5 or something.
Well, I know that would give them an option, but it'd give us an option.
Oh, they could,
They have an option to what to bid.
how they bid it, yeah.
Yeah. But there'd be a set, or a main type, then you could also say, well, have an alternate bid where if you change this, it would adjust the price up or down.
Exactly.
Just like sometimes we ask for black or white in our paving projects.
Yeah, exactly.
May I say something?
Yeah.
This excess amount, amount of fill that we have to store someplace. If we take a second look at where our lagoons are located out there, we'll hold quite a bit. The pile that is already there, that's 100 feet tall, that I have been told the developer out there will need all of that to get out of the floodplain of where he intends to build now. So if that pile is the same amount that we're gonna take out of this job and place it out to where our lagoons are, I do believe we have a lot of space. If we get our stuff that is out there
To pilot
to
there.
Downer and put it there. So I'm just throwing that out.
Further comments?
One last thing, Cecil, you obviously had stated, and probably rightfully so, the issue of public safety about that, that project. If there's safety issues, in delaying this project by whether it's, a few months or whatever, is there anything that we can look at that could improve or prevent issues that go on there from a public safety standpoint, whether it's signage or anything like that? Is there anything that could be helpful there?
We got so many signs on that Park Avenue, and now people don't read what we put up in the first place. But, no, I am just saying that as I watch the vehicles go past my house, it's 3 times as much as it has been in the last 3-4 years. It's just, and there's gonna probably be more traffic because of the developments that are going to be built. There's gonna be more kids, more people that wanna walk their dogs and take half the road and bike and all of this stuff. So, no, right now, I believe our police department is doing an excellent job of keeping safety. We haven't had an accident there for, just cross our fingers, it only takes one.
I think our biggest concern is the road is narrow and there's a lot of road, there's no sidewalks, so people are forced to be on there and the traffic is increasing, so there's nowhere for them to go, and so the new road going in and the sidewalks is what we're hoping for in the end.
I just want to throw one more thing in with our conversation with Mr. Tygeson yesterday. He advised me that he is having conversations with our representatives, and in the future, I've been looking in the future of opening up 7th Street to 17, which is at the south side of the school, which I've had conversations with the watershed district down there also. But that's the conversation he told me yesterday that he's going to have this summer with Eakin and Markward to see what it would take on what kind of money the state, if we start throwing these conversations to Markward and Eakin, what they can do for us. I know that's probably going to be a bigger project than doing Park Avenue. So,
Well, we appreciate the dialogue between the city and us as well, so, Commissioner Gross, did you have a comment?
Not that, I just ready for a motion on it.
Oh, I was just gonna say that, to say this process has been a cluster, I think would be a way of putting it nicely. And I really have my doubts about what savings we'll see by pushing it to fall, but that's just my perspective.
I would like to make a motion to reject all bids that we received and move on with the new provisions and rebid it and get it bid by this fall, and probably can get some work done this fall yet and come up with new bids.
I would second that.
We have a motion by Gross and a second by Campbell. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
thank you.
David,
All right, Brian, do your report.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, the first meeting, I guess we had last week was right after board meeting. It's already been talked about, PIC meeting, and just a little bit follow-up. There was a lot of discussion about practices and activities that are going on in the HR department with some personnel issues, to include insurance committee and things. And yes, we also discussed the recorders, and I'll be bringing in a formal request to the board to move forward on filling that position. So we can certainly present that at a later date. So the committee had a recommendation on that. So after that, we attended some MCIT training. Jane Henniger, our MCIT rep, was around to give us kind of a annual update of issues with MCIT. Probably the one that I can emphasize the most to the departments, and we had several departments there, is the fact that we need to track and keep track of the additions that we add, because we're adding equipment all the time, and it's just very important that that gets added within 30 days, mostly on the motor vehicles, but even buildings and different things. So we need to really stay on top of that, because if it's not on our list, it's not covered, just like your personal insurance is, and sometimes those things fall through the cracks. So we did, Mr. Mozo mentioned the conversation that we had in regards to a meeting on some zoning issues that, and I don't know that it's a zoning issue, it's probably a taxing issue at this point in time, but it's been a zoning issue in the past, I guess, and now it's stumbled into there. And then Jenny and Lori and I, Jenny Smarajan, Lori Johnson and I had a follow-up meeting on Friday in regards to the same issues. So I think we've got that pretty well settled down, wouldn't you say, Jenny? I think they kind of understand the county's position on it, and so I think we're okay in that. Darren and I met, I guess, a couple times on some personnel issues. It's always ongoing. Bill came over, Bill Berquist, and I visited a little bit about election issues, and he wanted some feedback in regards to going forward with that issues. Kirk and Larry from landfill and I had a meeting in regards to a new truck, our new pickup truck that they want to purchase there, so we had some discussion about that. We also had central administrators or central managers meeting. I guess talked about a lot of the different things that we talk about here on a weekly basis, kind of bring them up to speed and get their feedback. I did have lunch with the Becker County Administrator. We talked a lot about new jails and how those are flowing. I did attend the diversion meeting Thursday afternoon. I worked with Kirk on several meetings in regards to the bonding. I guess none of you have mentioned that, but I think it was last session, the last meeting, you passed the resolution in support of continuing the transfer station bonding, and you're all, I think, well aware now that that was not accomplished in this last session. I guess the positive thing out of it, there was $6 million in the bonding bill for the continuation of the work on, the planned work on 21st Street. So that's up to $48 million for that. That's a good thing for Moorhead, that's for sure, and Clay County. So we spent quite a bit of time on that last week. I did go out and have a meeting with Eric and then Dave, a couple of conversations afterwards on this bid process, and though we have been hashing that over and what has taken place. And then we did have a highway tracking meeting yesterday. That's already been talked about. Also accompanied Commissioner Gross and from Highway to the art meeting yesterday afternoon up there. We have about one a year of that. And I'll just echo what Commissioner Gross said. The process has really changed, and I'm looking across the room again at Jenny, and Jenny helped out a lot with that from the legal standpoint when we were asked to assist in trying to straighten that out, and we decided dissolving that partnership and handling it individually was, and I think it's working really well. I sensed yesterday, the 2, 3, 4 meetings we went to during that process, there was always audience members and complaints and concerns, and now we had a meeting yesterday with very little concern, so that was quite an improvement too, so. Met yesterday again, or not again, but I mentioned meeting with Darren, but I guess we had a meeting with personnel issues with the Sheriff's Department yesterday afternoon after we got back, and I already talked about the legislation thing, so that was about it. It's a quiet week.
So, Brian, did you have some conversations with our legislators about that bonding issue? Did they pay any attention to us at all, or did they just forget about us since it was supposed to be county bonding money?
We had conversations in that regards, and in fact, I sent some information this morning to one of them in regards to that. We did get some very positive feedback, in fact, even from a legislature that wasn't from this district, and called and explained his stance and his position and why he was doing what he was doing, and that was Representative Erdahl called, which he was the chair, he was chair of the House bonding bill. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was awfully nice of him to reach out, and he explained to me why he was doing what he was doing, and so that was, I thought that was really, really good of him. But needless to say, I think we have to have some conversations in the future here with all parties to find out where things are from a bonding standpoint. So,
I can make some comments, but I'll reserve those for later. So, at least in terms of dealing with the city of Moorhead on these issues, apparently.
Anything else? If not, we are adjourned.